Hey guys, my name is Dan and this is Stout Gaming. Welcome back to another week of the VBA Season 2 Pokemon VGC Draft League. I'm the coach of the Alexandria Arcanines, and this time we are going up against Raz and his Detroit Dhelmise. Raz's channel will be linked in the description below. So, looking up the matchup this week, we both have a Sun mode with Venusaur, which is possible due to this league's differing G-Max and non-G-Max options. So Raz's team is pretty scary, as you can see. I think the Ninetales is a definite bring on his team against me this week, but I'm not sure if the Venusaur is, although I could definitely see myself seeing it. But the other Pokemon I see in the likely to see category on his team are the Azumarill, the Heracross, and the Tornadus. I just think that those four have the best potential matchup into my team, and a Specs Ninetail in particular does a lot of damage to a lot of the things on my team, even though I do have more special bulk than a lot of the other teams in this league. The Azumarill and the Heracross being two of his only physical attackers, I think both have to come given the amount of special bulk that I have. Especially if I do end up bringing the Goodra, the Azumarill with the Play Rough is one of the few things on his team that actually has the potential to threaten the Goodra in the long term. Now, things that I think I might see from Raz's team, you've got the Duraludon, the Venusaur, the Spiritomb, the Mr. Rime, and the Toxtricity. I could honestly see an argument for any of these coming. Duraludon probably more than the others. His team is very soft to fire-type attacks, and I have a Torkoal and a Venusaur that both can launch very powerful fire-type moves. So I'm not sure if he wants to bring the Venusaur to this matchup, especially since I have brought Brave Bird Koko twice now, which is another thing that could threaten the Venusaur. But Venusaur with Sleep Powder is actually one thing that I have to be prepped for to potentially stop my Trick Room modes. Spiritomb has Imprison, but it doesn't have Trick Room. Mr. Rime could potentially reverse Trick Room. And Toxtricity, I think, has a decent matchup into a few things, but it does threaten the Koko if he does think I'm going to lead the Koko. So that's why I think it could come. I really don't see a role for the Charger Bug or the Sudowoodo this week. But for my team, as we know from Raz's past videos, Raz hates Trick Room, so I'm gonna play with Trick Room. I'm sorry, Raz, please accept my apology, but it was my best mode this week too, and not just a meme. The Bronzong is my best setter this week, and Bronzong Tangela is going to stop a lot of things, because he can only have one Goggle setter, and that means he will only have one Pokemon that can taunt into the Bronzong freely without getting misdirected. And if something taunts into the Bronzong that I think I'm going to run a Mental Herb on it. So the reason I want to set up Trick Room is because this team is soft to fire types. The Torkoal is going to be very good into the team, and Glastrier is just the best Trick Room mon in the league. And it does pretty well into a lot of his team as well, especially things that the Torkoal might be less inclined to handle. The Glastrier cleans up very well. So the question was, what am I going to bring outside of this core Trick Room mode? I could bring the Venusaur since we both are likely to set Sun. It would be very fast. It does threaten the Azumarill, and with some ground type attacks, it also threatens the Duraludon, and if I run Weather Ball on it, it does threaten the Tornadus as well. The Goodra could potentially come, especially if I do bring the Koko, because the Electric Seed Goodra matches up well into a lot of his team because he is very special heavy, and his two physical attackers, Azumarill and Heracross, don't have the best bulk to go with their physical stats. So a really bulky Goodra with plus defense from an Electric Seed could threaten his team. So that's also why I'd consider the Koko and also the Thievul, because Koko does prevent Venusaur from launching a Sleep Powder into the Bronzong, which is something that is one of the better ways for him to deny Trick Room. So that's why I could consider the Koko. And just because the Koko could come, the Thievul could pair with the Koko, because Snarls into this team are going to be very strong. And I do think that Koko has an all-around positive matchup with his team. But I didn't really see a role for Beheeyem, Mantine, or the Frostmoth this week. Although the Mantine I definitely could consider if we do match up again in the playoffs. I just didn't see it coming with what I wanted to do this week with that Trick Room core. So what did I end up bringing? Well, first, the Bronzong with the Mental Herb. It's EV'd to survive a Specs Overheat with Heat Proof from a modest max special attack Ninetales, and then the rest of that goes into physical bulk. It's got the Rock Tomb to trigger a weakness policy that we'll see later, and then Psychic because that does hit Heracross, which is one thing that I think definitely has the potential to come on Raz's end. The Tangela didn't really ever survive anything with Violite, given how specially aggressive his team was and how specially defensive deficient a Tangela can be. So instead I went for max speed, because if he does set the sun for me in game 2, if I've been able to identify where the goggles are, or even in game 1 if I can identify where the goggles are, leading with a fast sleep powder that he doesn't see coming is a very potent strategy. But otherwise, this is a Rage Powder focus sash bot. And hopefully it goes down when Trick Room goes up, because that would let me switch into some sweepers. So the other potential setup options, like I said, if the Venusaur comes, it could Sleep Powder, and if I can identify Sleep Powder on the Venusaur as a way to stop Trick Room into Bronzong, then this Venusaur setting the electric terrain, because it is heat proof and not levitate Bronzong, would allow Bronzong to never go to sleep. But I wouldn't want it out in Trick Room very long, which is why I've got Volt Switch on it. I've got double screens on it as well to be able to set up for extra bulk if I do go for a different kind of attack. And then given how specially aggressive his team is, Eerie Impulse really does a number to a lot of his attackers. It neuters the Duraludon, the Ninetales, the Venusaur. It can really hurt a lot of his team, and he's not going to want to stay in front of a Koko with the Heracross, because Koko can threaten it with either Dazzling Gleam or Brave Bird, of which I have neither, but he doesn't necessarily know that. Goodra to pair with the Tapu Koko with the Electric Seed. It's a 4-attack Goodra again, very bulky, high special attack. It's already got the high special defense, so I don't need any investment there. And then with the +1 defense that it's going to get from the Electric Seed boost, it's also going to have high defense as well. So this thing's going to chunk some hits if I max it. Thunderbolt hits the Azumarill, and it will be an electric terrain, so it also hits a lot of things like the Tornadus. The Draco Meteor is just a solid stab attack. Mudshot hits the Duraludon and also gives additional special bulk to my team. And then Flamethrower in the sun can hit Venusaur, for example, and there's a few other things that Flamethrower could be useful into, namely that Heracross, which I think might be his intended answer to Goodra. Flamethrower and Thunderbolt answering Heracross and Azumarill, respectively. Torkoal is probably my better sweeper this week. I haven't really used the max special attack Charcoal Eruption set, but when this thing starts launching eruptions under Trick Room, it's going to do a number to a lot of his team. The only resists that I'm really worried about are the Azumarill, and the Solar Beam does handle that. Plus, I've got other things on my team that can launch into that Azumarill as well. And then the last one we're looking at on the team is, of course, Glastrier. Very standard weakness policy set. Bronzong can get this thing up to +2 immediately. Icicle Crash, high horsepower, heavy slam hits his entire team. It's got Protect. And I do think that Glastrier does have the potential to be maxed and go in at different times this week. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into the battle. So, best of luck to Raz, and I will see you guys when I'm back around with the battle. So, looking at what he has available, I'm noticing no Ninetales, which is a bit of a shock to me, but I do see that he has both Sudowoodo and Mr. Rime. So I'm thinking there could be something there in the form of Trick Room denial, but until I see how he stops Trick Room, that's still going to be my go-to mode. With the lead I'm going with this Tangela Bronzong, if he leads Mr. Rime, I double Protect and then Trick Room. If he doesn't lead Mr. Rime, I Rage Powder Trick Room turn 1. But I'm pretty confident with that decision moving into the battle at this point in time. Like I said, his Trick Room answers are a little sketchy generally, and I'm hoping to exploit that in the battle. But I guess we're going to hop right on into the battle and see what he leads. First off, he goes with the classy white suit with the black vest, so he immediately gets bonus points there. Top tier character design, Raz. I like it a lot. So then we see Tornadus Heracross, and I don't know how this stops Trick Room, because only one of them can attack or taunt into the Bronzong. I've got the Mental Herb on it, and neither of them can pick up the Oko. I EV'd Bronzong specifically to survive a Heracross's max darkness off of knockoff, I believe. So, or it might have been a max bug, whichever one did more. So I Rage Powder, and we'll see what happens. Acrobatics, I'll survive because that's a physical attack, and Tangela has decent physical defense. Megahorn will KO the Tangela, which I'm happy with, and now Trick Room goes up, and Tangela goes down, so I get a free switch into the sweeper of my choice. The Moxie on Heracross does make it a bit of a threat if I'm not able to deal with it in the long term, but we'll see what comes on out. So I'm going to go with Torkoal because it's got the better Heracross matchup, and I don't want to switch in Glastrier to a Heracross that it can't KO in Trick Room, and then potentially eat a really big close combat or max knuckle from it. So the play here seems pretty straightforward. I Psychic into the Heracross and hit Eruption. And I'm happy with that decision. If nothing maxes, I should pick up at least the KO on the Heracross, although he might survive on the Tornadus, depending on how he EV'd it. But with Charcoal, this is still going to do a chunk to both, even a Dynamax Heracross and a super bulky Tornadus. I'm not really sure how he stops me at this point in the game. I'm feeling pretty confident because he's going to take an Eruption, like a full power Eruption, on two things right here. And if he protects with one, well, then he's taking a full power Eruption on one thing, and then a full power Eruption on two things the next turn. So the Tornadus does survive. I believe it has to have a bit of bulk to do that. And then with the Psychic, the Heracross also has a bit of bulk. But this Max Quake is still going to hurt the Torkoal some, although I feel like I should survive, but don't. So I'm not sure what that is. Even at +1, then I see the crit, and that makes a bit more sense. I'm not sure if I survive that. I don't know my +1 Heracross calcs with max ground, but that doesn't feel great. I'll put it like that. So I've got to switch in Glastrier now as my last thing in the back and try to 4v1 with it, basically. So here I'm starting to work through my options because the Heracross, if I attack into it, protects, and it basically burns a turn of Trick Room if I activate Weakness Policy on the Glastrier, which is my first thought. But I also don't think with that damage from Psychic I'm guaranteed the KO on the Heracross if I Psychic into it with the Bronzong from here. So I'm going to Psychic into the Tornadus. I almost Rock Tomb, but I don't want to reveal that tech, because Psychic still easily picks up the KO. And then attack into the Heracross as sort of a safety attack. This is a decision I'm pretty happy with, because even if he max guards here, which I think is correct, he still loses the Tornadus, and I only just don't pick up a KO this turn with the Glastrier. So Glastrier maxes, and we are going to see two quick KOs. Psychic's going to pick up the KO, and then with no max guard, this Hailstorm's going to pick up the KO and set the weather to hail. And then I'll also get a +1 with the Chilling Neigh boost, so I'm very happy with my current setup. I don't know what he has in the back that deals with a +1 Glastrier under Trick Room, but with a double knockout there, I've got the ability to set up my own weakness policy and slow myself down if I want. But I just don't see what he's got. So when he sends out the Duraludon and then the Sudowoodo, I know they both have super effective attacks in the Glastrier, and they're both probably launching this turn because neither of them wants to eat a +1 max move that's super effective into it, through Protect. So they both have to attack. So the question is, which one am I more scared of? The Sudowoodo I expect a Head Smash from, and the Duraludon I expect a Steel move from. The Room Service is also pretty interesting on the Duraludon because it allows it to outspeed certain threats without Trick Room and then underspeed other threats in Trick Room, but it does not underspeed either of the things that I have out, I don't believe. So, thinking that the Sudowoodo could have Sturdy, I'm going to launch Psychic into it and then try to take out the Duraludon first. And then nothing protects, which is about what I expected. Psychic does okay damage here. Then the Max Quake into the Duraludon, and it's a big hit. Big hit. Special defense goes up. Glastrier is getting bulkier on the special side, but it doesn't matter because Sudowoodo is going to launch a Head Smash, and Glastrier is going to KO anything that it attacks now. That does a massive amount of damage. It's a crit, again, but that was a massive amount of damage that I wasn't expecting, but I'm at +4 now. I've got one more turn of Trick Room left, I believe. And even with Protect, I don't think Sudowoodo survives a +4 Steel Spike or Max Ground. So the decision between Steel Spike and Ground here is interesting because if it does survive, I sort of want the Bronzong to get plus defense, because if it does survive this double up with a Protect, I still probably don't lose, but I don't actually think this decision matters. Never mind. I was going to say it was more relevant than it was, but it was not, even if he protected there. But the bonus defense, I'm just saying, would be useful on putting the Bronzong in position to 1v1 if it protected and then it attacked into the Glastrier. So game 2, I sort of want to go with the same mode and see if he can stop it. Because if he can't stop it, then it's just going to win again. It's going to put me in a favorable position. I'll get behind early, and then I'll sweep with powerful Pokemon under Trick Room. This game 1 really demonstrated why I think I've got the most powerful Trick Room mode in the league, because Glastrier itself can 3 or 4v1 when needed, and Torkoal is awesome at dealing the spread damage. So it's tough to match up against me. Like, I understand that, because you don't want to set Trick Room for me when I could just send out Glastrier and Torkoal. So you've got to try to outspeed me. And then I've also got a Tapu Koko, which outspeeds 97% or so of the format. And Thievul with Unburden, which outspeeds basically the entire format. So I'm able to play as the fastest team or the slowest team. Although I think Raz, because of Priority Tailwind, has the potential to play even faster than I do, which is why Trick Room was a must for me this week. But we are going to go ahead into Game 2 now. And what are we going to see from Raz? I'm sort of expecting the Mr. Rhyme here, and it comes out with the Heracross. So I think a double Protect here is correct, because this Mr. Rhyme's going to fake out, and I imagine it's into the Bronzong, but even if it's not, I want both of these to survive one turn. At least one turn, I should say. And then we'll operate from there. I still haven't identified where the safety goggles are on the team either, which is a bit of an issue on my end. So we do see the Dynamax, I'm assuming out of the Heracross right away, which is, it's a little scary, but through a double Protect, it's not going to deal a massive amount of damage. And then this will actually give me some interesting things to calculate later. But I'll get the double protect off, the fake out will go off into a target, and then this Heracross will launch its attack. So fake out into Tangela means he thinks he's picking up this KO. With that damage, he was not, and I did the quick math in my head, 4 times that. He's still not picking the KO from where I am even after that. So I can Trick Room pretty freely here, but my worry is if this Mr. Rime also has Trick Room and he just uses it to double Trick Room me. So Rage Powder doesn't actually seem like the play here, even if I'd love this Tangela to go down. So at this point, I decide to Sleep Powder into the Mr. Rime to prevent the double Trick Room tech. And I'm happy with that decision, but we'll see what happens with it in a sec. Because Sleep Powder, if it hits, putting that Mr. Rime to sleep will prevent him from undoing Trick Room with it, and will let me get in something to sleep it. So I think that's a good choice. But Mr. Rime has the safety goggles, so if he clicks Trick Room here, it's bad for me. But he clicks Encore, and this is good for me. Because I have Mental Herb. So the Encore ends. This Flutterby will not pick up the KO, even if he targeted Bronzong, but he targets the Tangela, which is fine. Tangela hangs on with a Focus Sash. Bronzong is very low special attack now. I'm burning his turns of Dynamax, and I Trick Room. I think this is actually best case scenario for me, because he only has one more turn of Dynamax, so if I'm able to get in the Torkoal next turn with the Dynamax over, it's going to be very good for me. But this Mr. Rime could still counter Trick Room, and there's nothing I can really do about it, so I'm going to try and put this Heracross to sleep, so even if Mr. Rime counter Trick Rooms, there's not a lot that he can do with it. And then we might have a little bit of a Trick Room duel of some kind moving on. But it is a fast Tangela, so if he decides to kill the Tangela, then he just kills the Tangela. So I imagine if this Mr. Rime is carrying Trick Room, we will see it right here. So Psychic goes into the Heracross. Heracross uses Flutterby, does not pick up the KO. And then are we going to see the counter Trick Room after this Sleep Powder is the big question. And I believe the answer to that now is no, because he's Freeze Drying instead. So I am in a excellent position at this point. So the Tangela goes down, which is good for me. And the Torkoal gets a switch in, which is good for me. And at this point, I think the game basically is just wrap up with the Torkoal getting Glastrier when it's free, which is actually this turn, is when getting in Glastrier is free. Because under Trick Room, Torkoal kills both of these because I've broken the Focus Sash if it's on the Heracross, and the Mr. Rime has Safety Goggles, and it does not eat an Eruption here. So this is a double KO unless he protects or switches. So I get the free switch into Glastrier this turn. And at this point, the match basically just becomes cleanup for me, because I've positioned myself in such a way that I have turns of Trick Room to operate with a Glastrier when he doesn't have a Dynamax left, and I also have a full health Torkoal that gets to sit next to the Glastrier. There's not a lot that can go wrong in that situation. Like, I could misclick moves, but I feel very confident with my positioning here. So the Glastrier comes on out. It's about to be expected. The Eruption picks up a clean double KO. And we'll see what he's got in the back, because I'm able to Dynamax Glastrier against 2 Pokemon, and I've still got this Torkoal that is going to do buku damage this set. So, in the back, we are going to see, is about to send him out, but he's got Duraludon and Duraludon. I say Duraludon, but I've heard Duraludon said so many times that it's stuck in my head. Duraludon and Sudowoodo. The room service still doesn't matter. I just have to pick my targeting here correctly. So, I think a Steel Spike into the Sudowoodo could be correct here. But a Horsepower could also be correct if I think that Duraludon's gonna survive. So what I do here is go for Eruption to break Sturdy, even though I know it's got Rock Head. I wasn't thinking straight, but it doesn't matter because Eruption still got a decent chance to KO this Duraludon because it doesn't have Assault Vest, because I know it has Room Service. And then I've got the Dynamax Glastrier, which gets to go to work for as long as I want it to. I was worried about a potential double Protect here, but I do not see one. I pick up the KO on the Duraludon, and then Glastrier cleans it up. So yeah, good games to Raz. I felt pretty comfortable once I was able to get up Trick Room, but playing around Mr. Rime was definitely interesting. But I'm having a lot of fun this season, and I am looking forward to my next battle. See ya!